Hello, welcome to Spaciblo. My guest today is Crystal Beasley. She's the host of Embodied Reality, which is a series of videos in which she explores the relationship between our bodies and immersive technologies like virtual reality. Crystal, welcome.
Thank you. I'm extremely excited to have my internal voices externalized as a dinosaur avatar. So for everybody that was involved in helping me realize my dreams, thank you.
Which leads us into talking about your series, Embodied Reality. I wanted to ask you, it's a provocative name, but it could go a little, many different directions.
Sure.
So how did you land there, and what does it mean?
I chose to call it Embodied Reality because I don't really know what the name of this thing is going to be. If it's virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, something else entirely. We've always named these things based on whatever's new about the technology, but that's not necessarily the thing that sticks around. So when movies came along, they were not initially called movies. They were called talkies when sound came along, or motion pictures, and I don't care what we call it. But what I do care about is the embodiment piece, which answers the question of how we will use our entire body to interact with immersive technology, whatever that ends up being, because I'm pretty sure the tidal wave is taking us in the direction of interacting using our voice and our whole body movements and our heartbeat and our brain waves and lots of other signals that are much richer than what we currently can use with a QWERTY keyboard or thumb controls on, like a game console controller.
It's true. It does seem like we're heading towards that direction, and the sensor, the Internet of Things and the sensors that are being put in all of our clothing around us seem like they'll play a part in it. If we get to there, if we get to an embodied reality, what's important about it? Why is having the embodiment such an important piece of it to you?
It's very personal for me. I've been interested in embodiment since I was about 15, but I certainly didn't call it that or know that was, the thread that was going to connect all of this work. What's important to me is having the most human experiences possible, the most deeply felt, and the biggest peaks. And having those peak experiences teaches us a lot about who we are and what works for us, what works for our brain, what works for our body. And the way that you typically get to a peak experiences, they are through your body. They are felt through the senses. They are in the movements that you make. And they come in a whole bunch of different flavors. And when I started looking at what they all had in common, the body was the big common element that they all have. And then when VR and AR and all this started happening, I realized that my entire career as an experience designer could now start to be about interacting with VR and AR with your body, not just with a layer of abstraction where you click on things and you type things. And that is when I went, okay, I'm in. Let's do this. I think there's definitely a lot of people that are pushing at the edges of it and showing us sort of the way forward. I'm really interested in experiences which you can control with your voice. Life of Us is a 2-player where your voice is modulated as you go through different stages of evolution, starting with a single-celled organism. And when you make a noise, whatever it is, whether it's speech or humming or singing or any noise that you could make, it gets modulated to sound like you're underwater. And those are just little things that increase the presence, and they also increase the idea that you are underwater. And then when you become a dinosaur and you're flying around and you're breathing fire, and when you make noise, it sounds like you're breathing fire. And
Wow,
guess what? It changes the noise that you make. You start to breathe fire. You have a very different experience of that because you're using your voice to interact with it.
So yep. How did you end up here? You know, what you mentioned sort of some of the pieces that interested you, but like, what was the sort of the path to this point?
Right. So I was at Mozilla for a while, working on authentication. Done a lot of different stuff in experience design. I ran a pie cart. My company that I started, QCut, was machine learning, making sizes for jeans in 400 sizes, which was actually 400,000 sizes because that's how math works. But we couldn't say that because customers would expect something that wasn't actually true about how many body types we could fit. So again, it's about experience and making tangible things. Most experience designers don't make tangible things, and I've always wanted to connect the digital with atoms. And virtual reality for me felt like an amazing opportunity to start doing that because we are making things much more tangible. I can't do this today, but you can imagine that when I ran my claw across this countertop, that it would make a noise and I would really feel like I was actually doing it. I would have that tangible sense of it. You can take the sound of your hands rubbing together and modify the audio, pipe it back into the player's ears, and if you pitch shift it, it makes their hands feel drier or more moist, which is amazing to me.
Oh, that would be so amazing.
You can make somebody in a snowball experience feel like they're touching snowballs.
Well, this sounds like the kinds of things that a research and development group would want to study. And I know you mentioned in an earlier conversation off camera that you actually were interested in putting together an R&D lab. Could you go ahead and talk about what your plans are and what you'd like to study with that group?
Yeah, so I am a person who is very good at beginning things, and I'm a big fan of doing the thing that you're really good at. And I want to prototype a lot of things. I don't want to ship games. I don't want to ship big polished products because for me that will mean that I have spent too much time on it. So what I do want to do, however, is make a whole bunch of prototypes that test out things like what I was just talking about with the auditory processing that makes it feel like you are actually touching a snowball just by changing the sound. So that would be an example of a prototype that I would make. And it's really VR for VR creators. And my whole purpose is to show people what's possible, to point us in a direction where there's a whole lot more stuff to explore that we haven't quite started to play with because people don't know that that property exists. So it's really a demonstration lab. I'm hoping that it can be an open source effort and we can get a lot of other people to help as well. And I'd like to make these a giant memory palace where you can walk from room to room, and these are all the rooms that explain how you can use sound.
Well, Crystal, thank you so much for coming today. Again, this is Crystal Beasley. Tell me how can people get to you on the Embodied Reality channel?
Yeah, so the best way to come at it is on the YouTube. We also just launched a podcast as well for those of you who prefer that format. And there's a Facebook group where we announce the events that we do and generally chat about, whatever is interesting on that particular day. So lots of ways to find me.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show. And
thank you for having me.
Great. So I think that's all for today. And thanks, everyone.